All right. Well, sorry, it's a little late on that, folks. It seems to be that this story that we're running tonight is, as you say, developing and developing fast. It's definitely. This is definitely one of those ones. Hold on to your butts, folks. This is definitely going to get interesting. Developing fast. I just got to make sure that I'm live, which I am, and we can go ahead and get started, shall we? So, and then I'm sitting here watching once again everything. I'm watching, and I've been having problems with YouTube for some dumb reason, and it's probably going to continue on tonight. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but it keeps doing it. I don't understand why. We'll figure it out. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world famous Rich Wilson Show. I am Rich Wilson, and hopefully I'll be able to see your chats. Don't forget, come into the discuss on this and your feedback like that. Should be able to see it up on the side of the page where I'm at. At least that's the hope. If not, if I can't see you guys' chat, I'll probably bring up the live feed on my phone so I can at least read that. But make sure too, while you are here, smash that subscribe button, click the bell for notifications, like this video so that way you can, it'll set up your algorithm and I might show up more often. That would be much appreciated if you do that. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get this show started. You're now watching the world famous Rich Wilson Show. All right, so tonight's show is Domestic Terrorism Unit. And why is this specifically a bad thing? All right. So I don't know if you guys caught it. I did not see any of the mainstream media people discussing this at all. And when I saw it, it kind of hit something in my head that this isn't right. And because domestic terrorism was never really officially defined. Terrorism is defined, but domestic as a criminal offense was not defined. And so I was like, how in the world are you creating a unit when you don't have, see, there it goes again. It's actually going in specific intervals. I'm starting to notice that. I'm sorry, I'm getting a notification popped up on my screen about YouTube. So anyway, let me see if I can get to the actual definition, because what a lot of people don't understand is the definition of that, and I'm trying to get to it. And let's see here. Okay, so basically what terrorism is listed as, This doesn't really show it. I asked somebody to be able to show me where it specifically links what the actual the threat encompasses the potentially unlawful use or threat of force or violence, and furthermore, ideological agendas derived from anti-government or anti-authority sentiment, including opposition to perceived economic, social, or racial hierarchies as perceived government overreach and allegiance or illegitimacy. There it is. Right here. Let's see what we got here. So here's the thing. Okay, so basically what they've done is they've defined terrorism as an act that causes harm or threat to an individual or individuals. Also an act through violence to force or attempt to coerce the government or government actions. Okay, let that sit in your brain for a moment on how vague that statement is. Just stop and think about that for a second, how vague that is, okay? So now you take this situation and look at the applications that are possible. Now, here's the thing. Now, I have some articles for you on this. I have an article on this for you. But just let that sit and marinate while we go through some of these articles for you. Okay? The Justice Department will create a domestic terrorism unit and counter the rising threats. Okay? The Justice Department says it is setting up a new domestic terrorism unit to help tackle what officials say is an escalating threat posed by violent extremists. The announcement was made Tuesday by Matthew Olson, the head of the department's National Security Division, and comes as the nation faces a constellation of extremist threats on the home front. The threat posed by domestic terrorism is on the rise, Olson said in testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The number of FBI investigations of suspected violent extremists has more than doubled since the spring of 2020. To help counter the growing threat, Olson said he's establishing a new domestic terrorism unit within the National Security Division. This group of dedicated attorneys will focus on the domestic terrorism threat, helping to ensure that these cases are properly handled and effectively coordinated across the DOJ and around the country, he said. Okay. Olson added that the new unit will augment the work of counterterrorism attorneys and the National Security Division who already work on both domestic and international terrorism cases. The announcement comes as the Justice Department investigates a January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol as an assault on senior officials have called domestic terrorism. Now, before I continue, let me explain something. No person in all of the January 6th that have been arrested and detained has been charged with any form of terrorism. Okay? So far, most of it has been criminal trespassing on federal property. This would change all of that. Okay? This would change all of that. Attorney General Merrick Garland has said the January 6th investigation is one of the largest, most complex, and most resource-intensive probes in American history. But the growing challenge posed by domestic violent extremists is also evidenced by a series of deadly attacks in recent years, including in El Paso, Texas, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Charleston, South Carolina. Okay? At Tuesday's hearing, Jill Sanborn, the head of the FBI's National Security Branch, told lawmakers that the threat posed by domestic violent extremists is persistent and evolving. The most lethal threat from domestic extremists, she said, is posed by white supremacists and anti-government militias. Let me read that for you one more time. The most lethal threat from domestic violent extremists is posed by white supremacists and anti-government militias. We'll get back to that in a minute, but I just want to make sure you understand that. Racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists are the most likely to conduct a mass casualty attacks against civilians, and militia violent extremists typically target law enforcement, government personnel, and facilities, she said. The Biden administration, which took office 2 weeks after the attack on the Capitol, has sought to prioritize the effort to combat domestic terrorism in June. The White House released the country's first national strategy to counter domestic terrorism. Okay. Once again, January 6th is brought up. So keep paying attention. I think that was the last one of that. Racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists are the most likely to conduct mass casualty attacks against civilians, and militia violent extremists typically target law enforcement and government personnel and facilities. That last statement in there, the government personnel and facilities, is part of the statement to be the catch-all for January 6th. And it gets worse. That's not even the crux of it. By the way, real quick here, if you are in my chat room and you're posting right now, I can't, for some reason it's not showing that there's anybody chatting in there. So I will every once in a while keep checking back. I'm trying a new setting with the works here. But let me get back to what I was saying. Okay, so let's put this into some context for you. Okay. They're labeling the racially section of it to encompass the white supremacist title that they've been tossing around easily. If you disagree with them, you're a racist, you're a white supremacist. If you have any thoughts that you didn't like the election and how it turned out, you're a white supremacist. If you think that Donald Trump won the election, you're a white supremacist. If you don't think January 6th was an insurrection, you're a white supremacist. If you don't instantly agree with the riots, not the mostly peaceful protest, which is a load of bullshit. If you don't agree with the riots that happened last summer, you're a white supremacist. So think about that. And what they're doing is they're encompassing certain language into this to make this easy. Now, how this is going to work. This is where it gets really scary, people. How this works is once they make a determination that you or a group of people you're involved in may be what they consider domestic terrorists, okay? Or you could be crossing that line, okay? Here's what they can do to you, okay? First of all, they can get the FBI on your ass and start an FBI investigation, okay? If it is determined through a preponderance of evidence that they believe you've crossed that line, and whichever line they choose to set, and the reason why I told you back in the beginning that domestic terrorism is if you commit a crime or if you commit a crime with the intent to coerce. And when I say when you commit this crime, understand that all it requires is you to have committed a crime in your state. Okay? It doesn't mean you have to commit a federal crime for them to go after you for domestic terrorism. You do not have to commit a federal crime. Okay? You don't. By the way, if you're wondering, you can go to the ACLU, the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security. You can go to a bunch of different of these sites involving this, and everything I'm telling you is listed there. Okay? So for those of you that say, state your sources, there's my sources right there. Okay. Now here's what they get to do once they've started the process. Because it's very easy for them to do this now. They get to seize your assets. And all they have to do is show a court, and you don't get representation during the civil court hearing that through a preponderance of evidence, you acted in a way that makes them believe you're involved in some form of domestic terrorism. They get to seize all of your assets. They also get to put out there that this is going on. Oh, kind of like that court of public opinion that the moment you get charged with something, everybody thinks you're guilty of it. Yeah, they get to make sure, they get to put that out there. Okay. Then they get to hold you without any listing of guarantee of a speedy trial until they make the determination that they can try you for whatever they decide to try you on under the crimes when it's safe to do so. Okay? When it's safe to do so. Now, and my source on that issue is look at what they're doing to the people from January 6th that they have arrested. How many of them have gone to trial? And that's my point on that. Look at the people at Gitmo that have been busted for international terrorism. How many of them have gone to trial? The moment they slap the terminology terrorism on you, it changes the landscape of the issue. And the way they have this defined is so broad and so vague that they pretty much can slap it on. Here's another thing, right? Do you know how parents have been showing up at schools and trying to argue, things being taught in school? Do you know if the school turns around and tells you that you're to get out and trespass? Or you're trespassing, and if they deem you didn't leave fast enough, you could be arrested, and because you did that, you can now be listed underneath of this? You can. If you're a member of a militia, you can go on a list, and let's talk about that for a second. Okay, because being a member of a militia is actually constitutionally allowed. Here's the thing. What they're going to do, and the Biden administration is going to be sending out $77 million to local law enforcement and state law enforcement to help build a data sharing database on individuals involved in these kinds of things, whether they're involved in militias or they're standing up against the teaching of information in the school that they don't like. And it can get put into a database, and you can get put on a list. Because originally, when this started months ago, it was voluntary. Okay, you didn't have to, as law enforcement, be able to work with this. Okay, now they're sending out $77 million out in federal grants for law enforcement to participate. And I can tell you right now, with all the crap that's been going on, law enforcement's going to jump at the opportunity. So if you're part of a constitutional militia, which you are allowed to do so, it's in the Constitution, now your name can go on a list. But that's not it. That's not it. Once they determine that there's a possibility that you may be in that category, guess what also they're doing? Working with social media sites to report anything considered part of this domestic terrorism. Now, let me clarify that a little bit, because you say, well, I don't post anything that would be qualified under that. Has anybody ever filed a complaint with Facebook that you did? I have. I got complaints. Okay. I didn't say anything that was racial or was an attempt to overthrow the government, but I had complaints. I got a 72-hour Facebook jail time for something that somebody perceived as hateful. Okay? By that standard, Facebook would then be required if they're participating with this, to the federal government that I may be involved in some form of domestic terrorism, or that I might be starting down that road, and now I get monitored. Like I said, back to this, the entire thing is very, very broad. It's so open-ended. You could be walking down the street and somebody could say that you were engaging in these activities, just walking down the street. And in fact, the way that this entire thing is set up, it's made to set up like, first of all, you're just guilty because of the color of your skin. Period. You're a domestic terrorist because that one can't. The article that I originally read to you, because I didn't cite the source on that one, that article that I read to you was the updated article from earlier this morning, and that one's on NPR. The original article I read this morning started this was the Associated Press, and I've been following this story since this morning when I first caught wind of this. Do you understand how scary this whole situation is? And what what can end up happening here? You're asked because somebody decided, okay, so let's say, let's give you another example to give it to you and some perspective on this real quick. Let's say that you and a whole lot of people decided you don't like what's happening and you decide you're going to protest, right? You decide you're going to protest, which you're constitutionally allowed to do. You go down to the city hall, you get your permits, right? You go down, you get your permits to be able to have a peaceful protest, and you decide to protest. You're like, I'm protesting. I don't like this. I'm protesting organic wheat bread, right? You're going to go down and you're going to protest organic wheat bread. I don't know why you would, but just an example, play along with me here, okay? And you decide you're going to go protest. And say that a majority of your protesting group happens to be one particular color, but you're not doing anything harmful. You're just protesting against organic wheat bread. Okay? And so anyway, if somebody reports that you were a threat to them, okay, reports that you were a threat to them because of your protesting, and that's because the moment they report a threat, a possible crime has been committed, boom, you are now on the list. They can now look into it, and every single person that was in that protest. So now simply protesting can become a crime. Okay, stop and think about that for a second. That's the scope of this. If while you're at that school board having a discussion with the teachers and they perceive you as a possible threat, poof, you can be on the list. If you're a member of a armed militia, which is authorized by Constitution, poof, you could be on the list. Here's another thing they're doing. Any military members that separate, because militias have a tendency to reach out to people who got out of the service. Let me explain something. I got out of the service and nobody from the militia came to me and said, hey, Rich, you should be a part of our militia. That never happened. But now they're going to have an educational class in out processing for military members that are separating to discuss with you that these people may come up and talk to you about joining a militia and why you should avoid it. Instead of teaching soldiers how to acclimate back to fucking civilian life, which they don't do, and why suicide rates are so damn high and homelessness and veterans are so damn high, because they don't teach soldiers how to acclimate back into civilian life. Nope. But we're going to teach you how to not join a fucking militia, because that's a great idea. And this is what they're going to do. And a group of lawyers is then going to sit around, look at the evidence, and determine, yep, I think that person was conducting domestic terroristic acts. And poof, they seize you to jail. They charge you under crime. And here's the bad part about it is domestic terrorism is going to be the umbrella. And you have a bunch of different crimes. But the problem is that there's no technical punishment for these crimes, which means the first case that this actually happens, they're going to set the standard by precedent. So if the first judge decides to throw somebody in prison for life for this, guess what? That's going to be the standard. That will be the standard that every single person, regardless of what happened, if they determine that, yep, that qualifies, you could get life. Because we're going to just slapdash a definition of what we think the white supremacists are doing, and we're going to say that. But let me explain to you, based on what they even said, no, there will be no BLM, Antifa, or any other organization that marched through cities, burned down shit, and killed people, which that happened. People died during these riots. Now somebody goes, well, people died on January 6th. An unarmed white woman was killed at the Capitol. The other 5 people that died from natural causes, and only one of them died during that day. The rest of them died days later. Let that sink in. When you got the politician sitting there saying that January 6th is related to 9/11, it's worse than 9/11 and worse than Pearl Harbor. 6 people died on during January 6th's riot or afterwards. Okay, one unarmed person was shot and killed at the Capitol. 1 died of a heart attack, and the other 3 died of natural causes later. Are all being associated with the cause of January 6th. More people died during the riots in the last summer, and at the non-controlled government zone, whatever the hell it was called. I don't remember that off the top of my head. More people died during that than January 6th. And you're going to relate it to 9/11. So over 3,000 people's death does not equate this to that. Okay, and Pearl Harbor is not going to equate to that. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than 9/11. And everybody involved, now that they're going to get this through, guess what? These people that are still have not been officially convicted of anything, that are still waiting for a trial, are going to get lumped into this. And then we're going to see this. Zion Brand said the parents being called terrorists came from multiple sources, where the Merrick Garland testified more than once to the Senate back, and now where a whistleblower confirmed his October 4th memo involving the FBI. Let me tell you something about Garland, okay? So Garland has stated over and over again that the biggest threat to the United States is white supremacists. Guess where he lumped white supremacy in with? If you voted or supported Donald Trump, you're a white supremacist. Yeah. So currently, there is 78.8 million people in the United States of America that by Garland standards are white supremacists, regardless of your race. Let that sink in for a minute. How you voted means that happened. And guess what? That means they're going to be watching when the elections come up again, because of course Garland's going to say something else asinine. Okay. Missing those Home Depot days too. But seriously, these are the things that are going on, and this is what they're putting through with a Department of with a domestic terrorist unit, with all these vague definitions, all of them horrifically vague, and nobody's covering it. Why? Because if somebody actually covered this in detail, there would be a freaking riot. You're going to be classified as a domestic terrorist. A lot of you out there are. Just get ready. It's going to happen. You're going to get on a list. There are, and because of the whole thing with the military, guess what? If you were in one of those job fields, one of those job fields where they may consider you, just because your MOS is very attractive to these militias, be watching. They're going to monitor you as well. They're going to look for every reason in the world to start getting rid of Republicans. I mean, they've already been stating over and over again. You've had Democrat members of Congress and Senate stating that Republicans were all white supremacists. Now, the KKK is going to end up on the domestic terrorist list. Good job. I hope they do. I really do. But people in BLM, Antifa, need to be in that damn list as well, because they were writing an attempt to coerce or change things in the government and coerce a trials. They will also qualify under this broad statement. I will guarantee you. I will almost bet every dollar I ever make the rest of my life, which I'm retired, so it's not much. Okay. That you won't see any of them during this administration get brought in. None of them. I am almost willing to go out on a limb here, and it's a very big limb, like the size of the Titanic, that you're only going to see one specific type of group of people for specific things, which I've already stated today in this show. And if they do turn around and they start sentencing these people under this umbrella, you're not going to see small sentencings. They're going to be large sentencing. Now, here's the thing. Another thing that got said here. I'm going to say this. Probably going to trigger something on YouTube, but don't care. People who refuse to get the vaccines have been stated even by politicians as domestic terrorists. Let that sink in. Seriously, let that sink in. Like, I can't, because I have a medical condition that says no. But I will be on that list. So I've got I have 3 different things that are going to get me on the damn list. Hell, we should have, you know what? We ought to get jackets, members only jackets. I think that would be fun. Members only jackets. At least then it'd be easier for them to spot us when they're following us around. Zion Brand said the White House for countering domestic terrorism lays a very scary thing. Certain group of you will lose your ability to protest, which is constitutional right. A certain group of you is going to lose your ability to be a part of a militia, constitutional right. Okay? Some of you are going to lose, a certain group of you are going to lose your freedom of speech. It's constitutional right. I have a feeling by the time this gets done, the moment you're on the watch list for this, you're going to lose your right to bear arms. I know that's coming. That's another constitutional right. It's going to get disastrous if this goes through the way that I read it. What I'm going to attempt to do, I might be able to, don't hold me to it, is I might put in some of these links in the description so you can go look at these. I'll have to do some editing later. It's going to get worse. What they're doing is not a good thing. I get when most people think domestic terrorists, they think people that are trying to do like blow up buildings and things like that. That's what most of us think is terrorists. Terrorists, they blow up shit, or they go into malls and shooting, and they scream out their gods or whoever the hell, and we think that's terrorism. The way that they have listed this out takes terrorism to you walk down the street and you looked intimidating. That could be terrorism. But you have to check off a certain box in order to qualify. And that certain box, according to everything that people in the DOJ has even said, involves your race. It involves your race. So being born a certain way can automatically make you a domestic terrorist. This is a country that's supposed to be about freedom, justice, liberty. None of that sounds like it qualifies anymore. It doesn't look like freedom. It doesn't look like justice. It doesn't look like liberty. You know what it kind of reminds me of? Oh, there's that guy who did some things back in the 30s and the 40s. You know, that guy. And that funny mustache and everything. Yeah. We're going to pick out a certain group, and we're going to label them an enemy of the state. Sounds a little familiar to 82 years ago, doesn't it? A certain group of people is an enemy of the state. So now we're going to start locking them up. You do the math. That's exactly what this looks like. And it's guised under the headline of, well, we're just trying to stop domestic terrorists. Because if you put terrorist on anything, it's a shock terminology. And, we've got to stop the terrorists. But then when you go through and read the things that these people have said, wow. Welcome to the new world. It's just like the old world. God, I wish our founding fathers could hear this. I really do. Folks, I don't mean to scare you, but maybe that's what should happen. Maybe now you should be scared into the ideology of what they're planning to do. I didn't make anything up that I said tonight. That's the scary part. I know there's people going to be sitting there going, oh, that sounds like some Alex Jones stuff. I didn't make any of it up. Just perusing through the Department of Justice's websites, the ACLU, NPR. You can find all of this out, and you can link all of this together on what they're doing and why they're doing it, because these idiots don't even try to hide the things they're saying. I read you what one of them said. It's specifically targeting. We went from a country that used to enforce segregation to a country who didn't, back to a country that's going to do it again. You should never erase the past or try to look away from the past, because you're going to repeat it. If you don't learn from your failures, you're going to fail again. We're going down that road again. Folks, wake up. It's coming. And sitting back and going, well, it's not really going to happen. I don't believe they would do that. If you have that mentality now, God help you. We've got to stop this. The best way to stop this without anything is to go to your polls when the election days come. Get rid of these people trying these psychotic measures. No, like I said, none of this is... I didn't make any of this up tonight. You can look it all up. It's real easy. It's not hard. Stop listening to the people who want to indoctrinate the way you think. Turn the television off. Major media is getting paid to turn you all into zombies. Period. It's nothing new. If it bleeds, it reads. I said that last night. Take a good look around your country, because it's about to change. It's not going to change in a good way. Lady Justice and the Statue of Liberty are both sitting together at a table crying right now. This is not what this place was designed to be. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the topic I'm covering tonight. I want to thank you all for being on the in the channel tonight. By the way, once again, if you like what you heard today, you want to hear more, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications, hit like and share this video. In fact, I want you to share this video. Share it to everyone you can think of that needs to hear this. Let everyone know. Like I've said before, and I'll say it again, go talk to people. Go socialize with people. Get to know each other. You'll find out we're not all that different after all. You'll find out that we all have similar interests. Some things we may disagree on, but you'll find out we're all willing, most of us are willing to talk about it. Get to know people. The cool thing about it is you also get to know the people that you need to worry about, because they're the ones going to report you to whoever to get you on the list. But the best way to stop all this, and the best way to prevent absolute disaster from happening, is for people to build their communities and to understand their communities and understand the people that reside within it. Otherwise, what was all this for? It's just been a 200 plus year of a waste of time. Folks, for everybody here at the world famous Rich Wilson Studios, I'm Rich Wilson, and you're not. Be glad you are, because that means you may not be on the list 3 different times. But anyway, folks, you have yourself a wonderful night. I know that my shows are a little shorter than usual. I found that sometimes the 2-hour shows it's just rambling on and makes no sense, and people tune out anyway. So I'm trying to bring this into a little bit more of a more professional, streamlined show. I hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. Once again, if so, subscribe, bell, share. Folks, for everybody here, have yourself a good night. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which doesn't leave you much room for error. And in the words of Abraham Lincoln from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, be excellent to each other. You guys have a good night. We'll see you later.